In this video, we're going to break down the differences between SuiteCommerce Standard and SuiteCommerce Advanced. If you're just looking into SuiteCommerce, you may have noticed that there's two different types. There's SuiteCommerce Standard, also just called SuiteCommerce, and there's also SuiteCommerce Advanced. And the main difference between these two is access to the source code. However, this does not mean that SuiteCommerce Standard cannot be customized, because it can. The theme, the HTML, CSS, as well as extensions like JavaScript can still be utilized to make changes to your e-commerce platform. And you may be asking yourself, if I can still do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript when doing the development of my e-commerce platform, then why do I need access to source code? And let me break it down into a few different examples of when source code is actually needed and when it is not needed, to help give you a little bit of context on what I mean. First of all, let's say that you wanted to be able to place a purchase order instead of a sales order whenever you click the button Place Order inside of your checkout. By default, it does it by entering a sales order, but for some reason, let's say your company has decided that they want to instead have it enter in a purchase order automatically. This would require some source code customization. Another example of requiring source code customization is, let's say that you wanted to allow your customers to modify their existing orders they've already placed inside of their My Account. This would also require source code modification. And because they require source code modification, you will be required to go with SuiteCommerce Advanced rather than SuiteCommerce Standard. Now that we've gone over some source code examples, let's just take a couple examples of why you can just go with SuiteCommerce Standard for simple customizations with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let's say that you want to implement a new custom theme that has different types of layouts and colors and different types of features and organization of the content to display to your users. Since it just requires HTML and CSS, there is nothing complicated that needs access to source code. Now let's take a look at an example of JavaScript that doesn't require access to source code. Let's say that you have an engraving feature that whenever they select that option and click Add to Cart, it adds both the item that they selected as well as an engraving option as a new line item within their cart. This would require some extension work and just a little bit of JavaScript to be able to get this functionality. However, it would likely not require any source code changes, and you would still be able to use SuiteCommerce Standard for this type of customization. You may be asking yourself now is, why would I ever need to access source code? Or how would I actually know whether I need to access the source code? And really the best way to do this is to be able to reach out to a SuiteCommerce developer and just ask them, because they will know better than anybody. If your SuiteCommerce developer comes back to you and says that none of the customizations that you're looking on adding require any source code changes, or maybe they just provide options where you don't have to do source code changes and they're acceptable solutions to you, then when would you ever want to upgrade up to SuiteCommerce Advanced, and how easy is that? Well, it's quite easy to go from SuiteCommerce Standard to SuiteCommerce Advanced in the future if that is a requirement that comes up later down the road. In fact, it's just super simple for the developer to be able to fetch all the themes and extensions and be able to deploy them onto the SuiteCommerce Advanced website. There are some configuration things that need to be done, and you may want to revisit some of your existing customizations, but all in all, it's pretty easy to go from SuiteCommerce Standard to SuiteCommerce Advanced. There's another thing to consider when either considering SuiteCommerce Standard or SuiteCommerce Advanced, and that deals with whether it's a managed bundle or not. Now, SuiteCommerce Standard has a managed upgrade option, and SuiteCommerce Advanced is solely not managed. And there's a really good reason for this too, and it deals with customizations. When you have a managed bundle and lots of customizations, and it automatically upgrades to the latest year version, then what will happen is potentially you may see some of your customizations break without you noticing it. Now with a locked version like SuiteCommerce Advanced, whenever there's an upgrade, you have to do it manually. But when you do it manually, you're aware and able to test it in Sandbox prior to the upgrade to ensure that none of your customizations break. These are a few things to consider when you're trying to decide between SuiteCommerce Standard and SuiteCommerce Advanced. If you have specific questions or technical questions, make sure to reach out to a SuiteCommerce developer or consultant so that they can answer them in more detail.